functional budget inclusive. You can from functional budget to master budget, because your master budget is still the same thing as your profit or loss. However, when you want to determine the material purchase or the labor cost or overhead cost, you have to go through the functional budget to do that. And that is why functional budget still will explain more of master budget. Your master budget is your normal profit or loss, your sales, then your purchases, how to determine your purchase material. You can use a functional budget to do that. Right. Then the labor cost as well. You can also use functional budget to determine the labor cost, of which we actually explained that in our previous lecture. And in today's class, we shall look at a question on the functional budget. Right. This is all you need to know about functional budget. The production, when you have a production budget, of course, you will use material when you want to produce. When you use material, of course, there will be labor costs. Of course, you will incur those people who will directly work with you in the production. We also have overhead costs as well, right? The last one is overhead costs. You know, they are unavoidable costs, right? Overhead costs. This may be given to you in the question, overhead costs, right? So these are the things you need under functional budget. Now, in today's class, let's quickly look at an illustration, one of the ICANN question on budget, right? Statistics shows that this question student failed it woefully, right? Because the performance was disappointing, because there are some things, areas you need to understand. One thing about performance management is that once you don't understand the numbers of days, the monthly, the hours worked, you kind of get confused on how to go about it, right? So let's quickly look at this question. Question two. Question two. Please, can someone read? What is the first? What is our principle? Principle is to read the required first. Okay. Please, can someone read the required?
Okay. Required. A. Prepare in the form of a statement the following information for the 13-week period ended April 4. I. The production budget in units for DAB and CAB. II. The purchasing budget for ABACS Limited in units. III. The production labor budget for ABACS Limited in hours. IV. The cost of production labor for the period. Then B. Discuss briefly two different circumstances where participation in setting budgets are likely to contribute to poor performance by managers.
Okay. Thank you. So this is one of the 30 marks question, right? The performance was below average. So now let's get into today's discussion. The question, right? Prepare in the form of a statement the following information for 13 weeks. So which means that they are ought to work for 13 weeks, right? 13-week period ending April. Now, the body, okay, start. Let's go ahead. Are you there?
You have recently been appointed as the management accountant to ABACS Limited, a small
Okay,
company manufacturing two products,
okay,
DAB and
hold on.
CAB.
Thank you. Hold on. Don't worry, let me read.
Okay.
Thank you. You have recently been appointed as the management accountant. Don't forget that those people who make use of firms, organizations that make use of functional budget mostly are manufacturing companies, right? They use it to prepare their budget for the period. Now, you have recently been appointed as the management accountant to Abbas Limited, a small company manufacturing two products, DAB and CAB. Excuse me. Both products use the same type of material and labor, but in the different proportions in the past. The company has had poor control over its working capital. To remedy this, you have recommended to the directors that a budgetary control system be introduced. This proposal has been approved by the board because Abbas limited production and sales are spread evenly over the years. Now, you can see now, you've been employed, then you're being recommended that, okay, but you have to put in some budgetary control system in place, right? Part of it is for you to, in order to reduce wastage of resources, is for you to prepare a budget, right? Now, it was agreed that the annual budget should be broken down into 4 periods, class. It was recommended that the annual budget should be do what? Broken down into what? Into 4 periods. Each of 13 weeks commencing with the 13 weeks ending April 4. To help you in this task, the sales and production directors have provided you with the following information. So it was recommended that they should break the annual budget into 4 periods, right? It could be maybe on a quarterly basis, right? And each of 13 weeks, so it is every 13 weeks, right? The first one we commencing with 13 weeks ending April 14. To help you in this task, the sales and production directors have provided you with the following information. Now, we're given information on marketing and production data. Budgeted sales for 13 weeks units. For the 13 weeks is 845 units, 1,235 units. Now, what does this mean? It means that when you've budgeted sales is this, and for the period of 13 weeks, right? For the period of what? 13 weeks. Material content per unit, that is 7 kg per unit and 8 kg per unit. Labor, don't forget, I think when we were doing ABC, I made mention of something. When they tie material to kg, it means that, like they say 2 kg per unit, they tie it to units. How many units did they produce? Or the production budget, how many units? If you say the material is 7 kg per unit, how many units did they produce? We give you the material usage, the material that you will use to produce that 50,000 units. I normally say that when you look at question, even if you've not seen the question before, look at what is given to you. Look at the material cost, look at the labor cost, look at the sales per unit. You can see sales per unit goes with what? Unit. Material, look at in this part now, it is material 7 kg per unit. It goes with what? Unit. When you multiply it with the unit, we give you the material usage that you will use to produce that particular what? Product. And labor, you can see labor goes with hour. That is why you're given that standard hour. Standard hour means budgeted hours, right? Now, 8 hours per unit. How many numbers of units did they produce? What is the budget, right? So if you say 8 hours per unit, right? And what is the total numbers of hours times the production unit, right? We give you the total numbers of the total numbers of hours that you will use to produce that particular product. Now, the production labor, each of the 24 production employees, class, they have 24 production employees, right? 24 production employees, 24 production employees work a 37 hour. They have 24 production employees and they work for 37, each work for what? Each of the 24 production employees work a 37 hour. 5 37 hour, right? 24 37, right? Good. 5-day week at 8 naira per hour, which means that if you have 24 employees and they will work for 37 hours. If you work for 24 employees, work for 37 hours, right? If you work for there are 24 employees, and if you work for 37 hours, will be paid 8 naira per hour. That is hourly rate. So that is, let's say for instance, the total numbers of hours worked, right, is 50 hours. How much are we going to pay you? We pay you 50 times the 80. This is the hourly rate. Any hours in excess of this, we require Abbas to pay an overtime premium of 25%. Now, what does this mean is that if they work above, if they work above these hours. Now, class, there is what we call standard hours and the actual hours or budgeted hours. Class, I hope you are with your calculator. 24 employees, 24 times 37 hours. What do you have? 24 times 37 hours. What do you have?
That's 888.
888. Now, this is fine. Now, how many? 888, right? And they will work for 13 weeks. Is that also? They will work for 13 weeks. So, which means that the budgeted hour will be the 24 employees hours times 37. We give you 88 hours. How many weeks are they going to work? 13 weeks, according to the question. Now, you will now say 8 hours times 13 weeks. What do you have? 8 hours,
11,544.
11,000
11,544.
hours, please. 544 hours. So which means that the standard time is 11,544 hours. The numbers of employees is 24, and you will work 37 hours. 37 hours times 24 will give 88 hours. How many weeks did they want to work? They will work for 13 weeks. So which means that 8 hours times 13 weeks, you have 11,544 hours. That is the standard hours. And the question now say any hours above. So it will require them to do what? Pay a premium, overtime premium of 25 what? Of 25%. Class. I hope I'm communicating. So any hours in excess of this, it will require, so which means that you need to compare the standard hours and the actual hours. So you will look at it, okay, this is the standard hours. Okay, did they work overtime? So any overtime will now attract, it will not be paid 25%. The overtime will not be paid what? 25%. And don't forget, the hourly rate is 80. Is that not so? The hourly rate is what? The hourly rate is what? Is 80. Class, I hope I'm communicating, class. Am I communicating?
Yes.
Now, because of technical problems, which will continue over the next 13 weeks, you can see 13 weeks. Employees are only able to work at 95% efficiency compared to the standard. You can see. So they were able to work 95%. Class, when you are preparing a budget and let's say you want to produce beans or you want to cook beans, in the process of picking the beans, you will have some wastage. That wastage, when you are preparing a production budget, you have to add that wastage because you factor in you've already factored in the wastage, right? Of which we actually discussed this in our last class, right? So you will factor in the wastage. Now, they were able to work 95% efficiency. Is that also what will happen to the remaining 5% efficient? What will happen to it? So which means that your compared to standard, so which means that your labor hours, the actual labor hours is 95. So you have to add back the 5% so that you will have 100%. Do you get? So that you have 100%? Because when you are preparing a budget, you have to include some wasted hours, the idle time, and all that. You have to add it to it so that you're able to do what? Get the actual budget. Now, if that is established, so which means that the standard that was set of 11,544 hours, so we need to compare it. What is the actual hours? So once we get the actual hours, we can compare. Do we have an overtime? Oh, we have an overtime. So how much are we going to pay the overtime and overtime to pay an overtime premium of what? 25%. So which means that we have to pay them 25% of the hourly rate, right? We'll get there. Now, next is purchasing and opening inventory, right? Purchasing and what? opening inventory. The production director estimates that raw material will cost 120 naira per kg over the budgeted period, which means that the cost of the raw materials. Now, in this part, if for instance this is 7 kg per unit, let's say you produce is 10 units, your production budget is 10. You say, okay, 7 times 10, we have 70 kg, which means that when you want to produce that 10 units, you will need 70 kg. However, you can see that the raw material cost is now what? 120. So 120 times the 70 will give you the what? We give you the cost of it. I'm just doing an analysis of the question, right? The production director estimates that the raw materials will cost 120 per per kilogram, right? Over the what the budget period. What it means is that first get what is the total numbers of raw material, what is the kg, what is the usage you will use. So your usage times the cost will give you the what the material chase, of which we actually mentioned that in our previous lecture, right? Based on the what the sketch, the skeleton or the format given to you before now. Now he also plan to revise, don't forget it includes purchases and opening inventory. So he also he also plans to revise the quantity of raw materials inventory held in stock. He estimates that the raw materials inventory level at commencement of the commencement of the budget period will be as follows. So this is, you can see the raw materials inventory. Now the raw materials, can you see it that this is the raw materials, right? This is the raw materials, like let's say this is the raw materials 2000 2328 kilogram, right? That is the raw materials. Then you have the 163 unit and 361 unit. Class, the first paragraph that they talk about here is the, you don't forget that they mentioned that this is purchase and opening inventory. This is purchase and what? Opening inventory. The first one is purchases of raw materials. The second one is opening of raw materials. So which means that this is this is this raw material here is opening inventory of raw materials of 2320 2328 kilograms. Why this in units here, right? It is opening inventory of finished goods. Class, they said purchases and opening inventory. Purchases and opening inventory. This is the purchases first, and the second one is talking about, he estimates that the raw materials inventory level at commencement of the budgeted period will be this. So this raw materials here, class, this raw material here is opening inventory of raw material. Why this is opening inventory of finished goods. Don't forget that I gave a formula for that. I gave what is it called? When you want to prepare your production budget, you have opening inventory of finished goods and closing inventory of what? Of finished goods. Right? Now, we already know that this is our opening of finished goods, and this is our opening of for the two products, DAB and CAB, and this raw material is the opening inventory of raw material, right? The opening inventory of raw material, it could be for the two, which is 2328 kilograms. Now, what is the closing? Right? What is the closing? Closing inventory at the end of the 13 week, because question we know most times under the functional budget they will not give you the opening inventory like that. Either they give you the opening inventory and you have to look for the closing inventory. Either they give you the closing inventory and you have to look for the opening inventory. Class, now in this question we're given the opening what? Inventory. So which means that directly or indirectly we may look for the closing inventory. And sometimes the closing inventory of January, don't forget all these things. The closing inventory of January will be opening. I don't mean this is on a monthly basis. You could have said, oh, the closing inventory of January will be opening of February. And the closing inventory. Closing inventory at the end of the 13-week period. Closing inventory are planned to change on the assumption that production and sales volume, production assumption that production and sales volumes for the second budget period will be similar to those in the first period. That is the closing inventory. It is for 13 weeks. Don't forget, we are preparing a budget for 13-week period. Now, the raw material. So, we've given they gave us the opening inventory of raw material. Now, what is the or closing inventory of raw material? Closing inventory of raw material inventory should be sufficient, sufficient 13 days production. What does that mean? So it means that if you want to get your closing inventory, it will be based on 13 days production. 13 based on the 13 days production. Now the question is, what is the 13 days production? Right? What is the 13 days production? Right? We'll get there. Now, the finished inventory of that should be equivalent to 6 days sales. Should be what? 6 days sales volume. The finished inventory of that should be what? Equivalent. So when you want to get your closing inventory of finished goods, will be 6 days sales volume. Sales volume. Class, 6 days. It means something. 6 days what? Sales volume. So which means we want to calculate it to be 6 days what? Volume. We'll get there. Now the next one is finished inventory of cap should be equivalent to 14 days. Right? Should be 14 days sales volume, which means that when you want to determine the closing inventory of finished goods, will be 14 days sales sales volumes, right? Now they prepare the form of statement for 13-week period. Now the first thing we need to do is to prepare the production budget in unit for DAP and CAP. Class, are we still together? Are we still together?
Yes, sir.
So suggested solution. First one is analysis of the question. Suggested solution. Right. The first one is to prepare. The first one is to prepare production budget. So when we want to prepare production budget, we will need this. Right? This is our production budget format. Bring it down. Right? So in this question, it wasn't mentioned that there is a wastage. Class. If there is a wastage of resources in the process of picking the beans and there is a wastage, that wastage you have to add it. Right? If not, you will not achieve the objective of the budget. Those ones that they are defective, you have to add it. That is I actually equally explained this yesterday in our previous lecture, right? Now, so let me quickly. So in this case now, we have to fix it. We have to fix. So there are two products, right? There are two products. What is the first product? The first product is what? DAB, right? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Are you the only one in this class? Where are others now? Tolulope, just hold on. Let me see if others will respond. Please, thank you. So, is in units. This is in units. So, what is the sales, budgeted sales given to us in the question? What is the budgeted sales, class? What is the budgeted sales?
845.
Okay. 85. Next.
1,235.
1,235. Now, don't forget that The opening inventory, the closing inventory is given. The closing inventory of finished goods is not given to us in this question. The closing inventory of finished goods is not given to us. And they say we should calculate it based on the first one, based on the sales. The first one is finished goods, Why this is based on raw material, the closing inventory is not given to us. Why the opening inventory of the two products is given. So let's fix in the opening. Let's quickly fix the opening inventory. Right? Let's quickly fix in the opening inventory, which is 163 and 361. Let's fix that one so that we now come back to that part. So let's quickly fix this. So you subtract it. Now, the closing inventory of finished goods is not given, but they gave us, it was stated, class, don't forget that I mentioned that if you have a wastage, if at all they said 25% will be wastage, please put it here as part of it. Wastage, right? Wastage or defective. You add it back to your production budget. Because when you want to produce beans or you want to cook rice or beans, and in the process, there are some things, there are some wastage, right? That wastage, you have to add it. If not, you will not achieve the purpose of preparing the budget, right? It's very what is very important, right? Now, the closing inventory of finished goods is not given. We need to do that, right? We need to calculate the closing inventory of finished goods. So we have to calculate it. The first one, we do the one of raw material, then we'll do the one of finished goods of DAB and CAP. So now, workings, we have our workings here. Workings as usual, right? You can name it work 1, work 2. Determination of closing inventory. So the determination of closing inventory for each of, now the question is, I need to understand something in this question. The question is, if, class, pay attention, if they are to work, if it is for 13 days, right? If this is for what? Is for 13 days. How many days do we have in a week? How many days do we have in a week?
7 days.
How many days? How many days do we have in a week?
7.
5
We have
days.
some say 5, some say 7. So the person that say 5, why did you say 5? The person that says 7, why did you say 7?
You said how many days do we have in a week? You didn't say how many working days.
Okay.
So we have 5 working days. We have 7 days.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. How many working days do we have? Well, let's go by that. How many working days do we have in a
5.
week?
5.
5. Do you know the reason why 5 days in a week, right? In a week. Do you know why we have to go through the route? Because anything you are preparing, you need to make sure is in line with the 13-week class. If we have 5 days, 5 days, 5 day, 5-day week times how many week did they say they should work? How many week are we preparing for? We are preparing for how many weeks? 13 weeks, right? Class, 13
Yes,
weeks,
sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
13 week. So which means that 13 weeks, class. So which means that 5-day week Class, 5-day week will be for 1 week. Another 5-day week will be for 1 week. That is 2 weeks. Another 5-day week will be for 3 3 weeks, right? That is addition. So which means that for every 1 week they will work 5 days. Is that not so? We need to get the numbers of days. Do you know why we have to do it like that? It is because if we want to get the closing raw material of inventory, it is based on the numbers of days. So we need to get what is the numbers of days are they working? What is the total numbers of days if they are to work 13 weeks? Right? Now, if as I didn't mean the question, I can still change the question to week, right? So by then you don't need to do conversion. You already know the numbers of weeks, these weeks, and all that. You don't need to change anything, right? Now, if this is established, so class multiply, how many days are they going to work? How many days? How many
65
days?
days.
65 days,
65.
65-day work, right? They will work for 65 days, right? Why they are closing inventory of raw material. So now let's start the analysis. Class, I hope you are following. Are you following? If you didn't get it
Sir,
here, if you
sir,
didn't get
sorry,
it
sir.
here,
There's a part I'm not getting. Sorry, sir. The
what is the
opening
part?
inventory of finished goods.
What happened?
Why did we use that of raw material?
That is usual. Is it raw material or finished goods? It is not raw material. That is why I equally analyze it one after the other. If it is raw material, it will be stated. I said the first one is purchases and opening inventory. The first one is purchases of inventory, right? Right? This is raw material. This raw material here, 2,328 kilogram, is the opening inventory of the two products of raw material. Why this is finished goods? Because it's in units.
Oh, okay.
Do you get?
Yes, I
The
get now.
question is a very technical question, right? I purposely I saw it, I said, wow, I like this. I like the question because it's technical, right? You have to think. Well done. Thank you. Now, if this is established, right? Because if you don't get it here, it will be very difficult to get others. Please pay attention. Now, if they work 65 days week, the first one is we want to determine the closing inventory. Is that also? Now, the first one is, let me go back. The raw materials inventory, right? Closing inventory of raw material. So we pick it closing inventory of raw material. Closing inventory of raw material. Let me put it, let me just tabulate it. The first one is, what is the name? DAB, right? DAB and CAB, right? And CAB. CAB. Raw material will be usually in kg. Raw material will be in kg. It will not be in units. That is the difference. It will be in kg because it is raw material. If it is finished goods, it will be in units. Please, do we get that? Do we get that? Do we get
Yes,
that?
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, the closing inventory of raw material. Class, I'm coming. It's an interesting question, right? The closing inventory of raw material, let's quickly go back, is how many days? 13 days production. Class, 13 days production. Is that also? Now, 13 days. How many days are they going to work, class? They will work for 65 days to get the closing inventory per day. Now, times, the question says, raw material inventory should be sufficient 13 days production. What is our production? You can tell me, what is our production? 13 days production. What is our production? Let's quickly go back. It is not your production budget. What is your production? I've equally stated that, don't forget, even under the theory of limiting factor or throughput accounting, I said when you are given budgeted sales, they said marketing and production. Marketing and production. When you are given projected sales, if you know that for you to have a projected sale, it means that is your production. I've equally said this. Yes, I normally say that when you have a budgeted sales, check the previous lecture. What does this mean? It means that it is their production. If you have a budgeted sale, unless if you are given actual production, if you are given separate production, fine. You can see that this is marketing and production, right? So we have 845 because 845 and 1,235, right? Because for 13 days production. 13 days what? Production. So because out of 65 days, it is 13 days. Class, are we getting the gist? Class, are we getting the gist? Out of what?
Yes.
65 days. It's just like in a month, you have 12 months. Out of the 12 months, you have 3 months. So 3 divided by 12. Is that not so, class? Am I communicating? So the first one is production, which is 845 units. Should I do it one after the other? So that's okay. Let me just do it like this to work. So you give me figure. Tolulope, please just hold on. Don't give me figure. I want others to just participate, right? You should give me figure.
169.
169.
169.
Unit, I think.
Yes.
169. Which one is 169? The first one? Okay, this one is 169, right?
Yes, sir.
1,169 kg is in kg, right? Is in what? Is in kg. So 169. Raw material 169, 169, 169, 169. Raw material kg. Okay. Let's change it. Closing inventory of raw material. It is closing. It is closing. It is closing. Okay. It is raw material, right? Of production. Okay, let's pause here. Coming. Let's do something. Let's do something. Okay, now let's go back to the question. Raw materials inventory should be sufficient 13 days. 13 days production. And the numbers, because it is raw material, right? We should have used the figure for the raw material, right? You should have used that for it. Now, just a minute coming. The call will end in 12 minutes, right? Just a minute. Just give me 1 second. The first one is 84 what? 845, right? 845 units. What do you have here? What do you have? Quickly. Hello, what do you have?
169.
169. 169 kg. Right? 169
Sorry,
kg.
sir.
Yeah, Mutil.
Please, I will it be kg because we have if days cancel days, is unit to have.
Okay, that's true, that's true. Okay, if days count, that's true. Times how many kg? Okay. Okay. Just a minute, I'm coming. Let me check the question. So, yeah, okay. Where it was mentioned, raw materials inventory should be sufficient. 13 days production. Class. That is the actual. That is the budget. 13 days what? Production. Right. So which means that when we want to determine the 13 days raw materials, don't forget raw materials will be in kg and you are doing a budget. So which means that 13 days production, it will be based on your budgeted production. Class, it will be based on what? Your budgeted production. 13 days production. That is your budgeted production because that will be your what? Your closing inventory. In this case now, we can just leave this part because we've not done the what? The budgeted production, right? We've not done the budgeted production. We can just leave this part. We'll leave it like this. We'll leave the closing inventory of raw materials since we will not need it in the determination of production budget. So what next do we have from finished inventory of that should be what? Should be equivalent to 6 days sales volume. Can you see it? 6 days closing inventory of finished goods. So that is what we need. We don't need the raw materials now because the raw materials is based on production. That is budgeted production. If it is sales volume, it would have been stated that it is based on the sales volume. Closing inventory of finished goods. So how many days? How many sales volume? How many days? 6 days sales volume, right? So we can have 6 days divided by 65 days times what is the sales volume for DAB? What is the sales volume for DAB?
It's
What is
45.
Okay, 845. 845. What do you have? Units? How many units will you have for the closing inventory?
78 units.
78 units, right? So the next one is what? 6 days divided by 65 days times how many units sales volume? What is
1,
the
2,
sales
3,
volume?
5.
1, 2, 3, 5 units. Who is that now? The person should mute his or her mic, please. Mute your mic. We are in class. Mute your mic. So this, what do you have here? If you multiply this, okay.
114.
Okay, let me separate it like this. 1 what?
114.
1,000.
No,
114.
114.
Okay, 114 like this.
Yes, sir.
6 days. How many days? How many days? Sorry. Let's change the days. We didn't change the days now. How many days? How many
14 days.
days? Okay, 14.
14.
Okay, 14 days. Total is 14 days, not 6 days. 14 days. So what do you have?
Okay, that's 266.
266 units. 266 units. Okay, good. So what next we are okay? We've calculated, we've done for DAB. Now this closing inventory of raw material is production. That is your budgeted production. That is the assumption here, class. At the end of the 13-week period, closing inventory are planned to change on the assumption that production and sales volumes, assumption that production and sales volume for the second period is this. This is your 13 days production. It's not sales volume, oh, right? It is the what? That is where I can lock the question. Production, that is your budgeted production, right? Because you need to know that this is what you produce, right? What is the kg that you use to produce that particular what product? We'll get there. So, having determined the closing inventory of finished goods, so we can move it here, 78 and 2 cc's. 78 and 2 cc's. So, well, there is no defective. Don't forget, if there's a wastage, you add back the wastage, but there's no wastage, right? So what do we do? What is your final figure here? Quickly.
That's 760 for DAB.
760. Next.
1,140 for cab.
1,140. Right? 1,140. This is your production budget. Now the question says you should do what? You should calculate the first side. So are we good? Can we move on? Can we move on? Now, the next one is, what is the next question? What is the next question, please? Hello? What is the next question?
The next question is the purchasing budget for ABAX Limited in units.
Okay. So we didn't write the name of the company. What is the name of the company?
ABAX
Limited. This is very important. Production budget. Presentation. So purchase budget, right? Is it purchase budget? Right?
Purchasing budget, yes.
Purchase budget. Purchase budget. The budget will always be in kg. Purchase budget. Don't forget, from the formula I gave, before you determine the purchase budget, what is the usage you will use? You need to look for the usage. If it is not given to you, you say you want to produce 760. How many kg will you use to produce 760? You say you want to produce, you said you want to produce 1,140. The question is, how many kg will you use to produce 1,140 kg? Class, am I communicating? Now, in this case now, you need to look for the material usage. It will be in kg. Material usage, right? It will be in kg, right? So let's get the usage. How many kg will they use to produce 760? Don't forget, at the beginning of this question, it was stated explicitly that, or it was stated that the material usage per kg, right? Material usage what? Per kg. So now, if you want to produce 760, you can do your workings outside, right? Times. So how many kg will they use to produce 1 unit? How many kg will they use to produce 1 unit? At the beginning of this question, it was mentioned.
7 kg.
Material, 7 kg. Thank you. You can see, before you can get material usage, you need to do, you need to say this is your production, right? 7 kg, 7 kg per unit. So what is the usage? What is the usage?
5,320.
5,320. 5,320 is the usage. So the next one is 3,320 is the usage. So here you can say 1,140 units times, what is the kg?
8
8,
kg.
okay, 8 kg per unit. So what do you have?
9,120.
9,120. So if you have material usage, so don't forget, from the formula given to you, you need to have your closing inventory or your opening inventory, right, of raw material. Now, from the question, are we given anything from the question given to us? Let's quickly check where they gave us the opening inventory. Can you see it? What is the opening inventory of raw material? 2,328. Is that not so, class? Class, is that not so? Hello? Okay. Now that means that it is for the two. It is for the two what? It is for the two. Sometimes you may be given, they may give you separate usage, right? Kg. So in this case now, I can add, what is the total? Since they gave only one material, only one raw material, so I can add the two together. What do you have? If you add these two together, what do you have? If you
That's
add these two together,
14,440.
14,440. Please don't forget the material, the raw material, right? Maybe they may give you opening raw materials for the two, but in this case, they just give us one. Just do the total, right? So we can have opening raw material given to us, opening raw material. So what is the opening raw material given to us in the question? Don't forget you subtract opening, you add closing. What do you have? What is the opening? What is the opening raw material given to us to class? The kilogram. What is the opening?
2328.
328.
Okay, 2328. If you don't know where they pick figure and you keep quiet, you are on your own. Oh. So the next one is the closing inventory, except those that are just joining now. Except those that are just joining now. If you are just joining this class now, please don't even bother to ask me question. Please. Closing inventory of raw material. Now, don't forget that it was stated. Don't forget that it was stated here. So don't forget that I mentioned that you may be given the closing inventory of both of DAB and CAB, but in this case they give us only one, right? Now, let's come back to this closing inventory of raw material. Can you see it? Production. And we've done the production already. Is that also 13 days production? We've done so which means that it will be easy for us to determine the closing inventory of raw material. So we quickly go back to our workings. We quickly go back. So we now say times What is the times? What is the production? What is the budgeted production? Production required or budgeted production? What do you have? What is the production budget
That's
for DAP?
845.
DAP, no. Production budget. Your budget. 760. Right? 760 because it's based on production. It's based on your production. 760. 760 units. Now, if you say 760 units, what do you have? If you say 13 days divided by 65 days times 760, what do you have? What do you have?
152.
152. Is that not so? 152. Now, 152, that is 152. 152 is in units. Is that not so? Now, how
Yes,
many kg? How many kg for DAP? 7, right?
7 kg.
Multiply it. What do you have?
1064.
1064. Good. So let me analyze it here. Okay. Times. So what do you have first? What do you have when you divide it? What do you have first? What do you have here?
Okay, what we have first is 152.
152 units. Is that not so?
Yes, sir.
Class, 152 units. And the closing raw material, inventory of raw material will be in kg. Class, the closing raw material will be in kg. The question is, how many kg are they going to use to produce 1 unit? How many kg? It is expressly given in the question at the beginning that material content per unit is 7 kg, 7 units per kg, right? 7 what? Because raw material is for kg, class, times 7 kg times 7 kg per unit. So what is the kg for that?
1064.
1064 1064 kg, which means that the closing inventory of raw material will be what? 1064 kg. Now you still do the same thing for carb, right? You do the same thing for carb. The closing inventory of raw material. What is the production required? What is the production budget? What is the production budget? What is the production budget for carb?
1140.
1140.
1140, right? 1140. This is where they get it to production, class. You know, we are following the question. We follow instruction given to us in the question that raw material inventory should be sufficient 13 days production. That is the production required or production budget. And that is why we are multiplying it with the 13 days and that, right? So give me figure. Let's change this. This will be carb.
That's
I'm coming. What is the unit here?
228 units.
228 units times what is the kg given to us in the question? 8.
8 kg.
So what? 8 kg. What do you have here?
2824. 1824.
1824 kg. Right. So let me arrange this again. This is for DAB. Let me bring this one down and say this is for carb. Okay. Carb, DAB. Then this is for DAB for finished goods. Now, do we have anyone who is in this class who started with us at the beginning and did not understand how we arrive at these figures? Do we have anyone? I guess no. Now, this is the closing raw material. So we can pick it. So we can now use it now. Bring it forward for DAB, closing raw material. You can see that the question is technical, right? You just have to think, right? The next one is what is the next one, self? 10. Okay, which one? Okay,
1824.
1824. Thank you. Right. Don't forget you add it. When you add it together, what do you have? When you add
288.
288. So what is the material purchase? What is the total material purchase when you remove it? When you add and subtract, what do you have? So this will give the material that you purchase. Material
That's
purchase.
15,000.
That is what 15,000 kg. It means that you will buy 15,000 kg. You have to go and buy 15,000 kg. Class. And don't forget, the cost per kg is given to us in this question. The cost per kg is given to us in this question. So what is the cost? Let's say cost per kg, which is the kilogram. What is the cost per kg? Can tell me what is the cost per kg given to us in this question?
120.
What is the 120? Can you see it? The production director estimates that the raw material will cost 120 per kg. Class, this is not, it is not a magical. You just have to understand that format, that skeleton that I gave to you. Understand it. That when you production, you will buy raw material. When you buy raw material, you will use labor. Is that not so? When you use labor, you will have an overhead cost. Then you have your profit when you want to do your master budget. Right? So 120 kg, 120 naira per kg. So when you multiply, we give you what?
1,800,000.
1.8 million.
Purchase cost. So you multiply, you
1.8
say,
million.
okay, you say this is A. Let's say this is A, this is B, then A times B. 1.8. So this is the purchase material cost. $180 class.
1.8 million.
Is it 1.8? Okay. Okay, 1.8. 1.8. Okay. So we are done with this part. Which other one do we have again? After this, what is the next question? Class, what is the next question, please? Quickly.
Production labor. The production labor budget.
Thank you. They can't do without that because these are the people that they will need in the production. Right? In the production labor budget. Production labor budget. Don't forget the skeleton I gave, right? That you want to produce. Anything you are doing is based on this budgeted production. That is from that budgeted production, that is what you use to calculate the material usage, the cost. Therefore, the labor as well, right? The labor as well. So now we can present it this way: tab and dab. right? So you get the total hours. The question is, what is the production? Don't forget these steps. Go and check the format, right? You said production, that is budgeted production, will be in units. Then, if budgeted production will be in units, how many hours, right? You can say hours per unit. Don't forget, I gave this format yesterday, right? Hours per unit. This will give us, when you multiply the two, we give your total numbers of hours. Is that not so? We give what? Total numbers of what? Hours. So you can say total hours worked. Please always write it in full. Then when you have total hours worked, of course, what is the rate per hour? Rate per hour. Then finally, you have labor cost. You have what? You have labor cost. It is not magical. Production hours per unit. This one is in hours. This is in rates, right? The other one is in what? Cost. Now, what is the production unit? The budgeted production unit? Quickly.
For DAB, 760. For CAB, 1140.
760.
Sir, the
Why
name.
this is?
You wrote CAB first.
DAB is the first one.
Okay, DAB. Why this is CAB? 760. The next one is what?
1140.
1140. So, what is the hours per unit? It is given in the question. The hours per unit at the beginning.
18 naira.
What is the hours per? Okay, thank you. Let's confirm that together. Can you see it? 8 hours. 8 hours per unit. 8 hours per unit. 8 hours standard. 8 hours per unit. 8 hours per unit. 8 hours per unit. 8 hours per unit. Okay, 8. The next one is what? Per unit. Which one? 5, right?
5. Yes. 5.
5. So what is the total hours that you will use to produce 760 units? Quickly, class.
That's 6080.
6,080. That is the total numbers of hours you will use. Next.
5,700.
5,700 hours, right? Hours. Now, ideally, we're supposed to, don't forget, there is a clause given to us. This is the actual hours you will use to produce DAB and GAB. Is that not so? But they mention over time. Is that not so? The question actually what mentioned over time. So I can put it here and say this is total hours. So when you add these two together, what do you have? If you add these two together, what do you have?
1178.
11.7 what? 11.7 what?
80.
Okay, 11.780. Thank you all. Now let's quickly go to, we want to test for overtime. We want to know if they actually work overtime or not. I think if there is no overtime, we would have just put our rates. we get the labor cost, we just total it, we have our cost, we move on, and we are done. But because the overtime is given to us in the question, and they said something about it. So now let's quickly go back to the paragraph of the labor, production labor. Class, each of the 24 production employees work a 37 hour. Now, class, we need to have, this is what they work. That is like a standard, class. That is like a what? It is like a standard. 24 production employees work. What we calculate now as hours is the actual hours, is the budgeted actual hours that we use to do what? To produce that unit. Now, we need to get a standard hour so that we can compare it with what? The actual. So we can now say, oh, do we have overtime or not? Now, 5-day week, 5-day what? 5-day week at 8 naira per hour. 8 naira, you can see this is where they even mentioned the 5-day, right? 5-day work, 5-day week, which means that they have to work for 5 days. So that is why, okay, you can also use that part as well, right? Now, 5-day week, they will give them 8 naira per hour. Any hour in excess of anyone that we calculate, any hour in excess, what will happen to it? It has to be an overtime minimum of 25%, class. Now, because of the technical problems, which will continue over the next 13 weeks, employees are able to work at 95% efficiency compared to standard. So, which means that the hours worked here, class, the hours worked here is 95% because of the efficiency, because of the technical issue, class. Because of the technical issue, right? They were able to work 95% efficiency. So, and what is the work? It is 11,780. This is the 95% efficiency. Class, don't forget, when you want to, okay, now let's check for the overtime. The overtime, now, we need to get the standard hours. So we can say standard hours equal open brackets, 24 employees, right? 24, let me push it like this. Okay. 24 employees times how many hours?
37.
How many hours? 37 times how many week are they going to work? How many week, class?
Same.
How many week? Class,
13.
how many week? 13.
13.
Thank you. 13 week. Please, if 24 production lab employees work a week, a 37 hour, how many week, class? And we are to prepare for 13 weeks. So 13 weeks, what is the standard?
11,544.
What is 11 4 what?
11,544.
11,544. Class, this is the standard. And the question says that any hour in excess, what will happen to it? Any hour in excess, we have an overtime of 25%. So therefore, there is an overtime here because we set a standard of 11,780. We set a standard of 11,544. The actual total hours worked is this. And it is because of the technical, they were able to work 95% efficiency. What about the remaining 5%? What about the remaining 5%? Class. What about the what? The remaining 5%. Where is it? Class. Now, they were able to work 11,780. I don't know if I should separate it and bring it back, but that's fine. I think if there is no overtime, we would have just put our rates and the labor costs and we move on. We get our labor cost because of there's an overtime. You need to check for it. And this is how to check for it, class. So what is the difference? Which is the overtime?
236.
What is the difference? Overtime. What is the overtime?
236 hours.
Okay, 236. Right? The overtime is 236. Okay, the overtime is 236. 236, 236, 236. That means we have to add back. I'm coming, just a minute. 12,000 minus 11,544. Okay, that's fine. So, class, let's come back to this part. Now, the total hours work is 11,780 class. And because of the technicality, it is just 95% efficiency. What about the remaining 5%? Where is it? So therefore, you have to add back that 5%. Don't forget, in the production budget, when you have a wastage, you add it back. In labor, when you have an idle time, you have to add it back so that you can be able to meet up with the production. That is the idea, right? So you can say production adjustment, the remaining 5%. So if it is 95% efficiency, so 5% will be 5 divided by 95 times 11,780. So what do you have?
620.
620. Right? So what is the total hours now? When you add it, what do you have?
12,400.
12,400 or 200?
400.
400. Thank you. Now, you can now compare. Class, you can say this will be your total hours worked, right? This will be your what? This will be your total hours what? Total hours worked. Class, a minute, please. So, because of the technicality, there will work efficiency of 95. What about the remaining 5%? You have to add it back so that you will know that when you are doing your budget, you've already included it. Because if you just use 95, it means that you may not produce up to that 760 because of the technicality. So that is why the idea is that add it so that you can be able to meet up with that 760 production unit. Class. Now, the total hours will now be 12,400. Right? 12,400. So you now compare it with the standard. Then what is the overtime now? When you subtract it, what is the overtime?
856.
What is 856? 856. 856. Class, please, when you are preparing labor budget and you have idle time, you have a problem in the process of producing it, please add it back. so that you will have the total hours. Then if there's an overtime and they say there is a rate for overtime, you can compare it to get your overtime, because sometimes you need to compute the overtime, which is what we did just now. Is that not so? That is what 856. So if all these things are not there, we would have just say rate times the total hours, we have the labor cost. Rate times the total hours, we have the labor cost. Then we move on. But because of the overtime, and that is because of the overtime and because of the technicality, and that is why we need to do it this way. Please, always analyze question, right? So this is the overtime, and the overtime is paid at what? 20%. How many percent is it paid? 20. How many percent? 25%, right? Right, class? Hello?
Yes, sir. 25%.
Okay, 25%. Thank you. So in this case now, I can say labor cost. Now, I can say labor cost, right? Labor cost, total hours worked. What is the total hours? 12,400. 12,400 hours times, what is the rate per hour? What is the rate per hour? What is the rate per hour?
80 naira.
80 naira per hour. So what do we have? What is the
992,000.
992,000? Or labor, you can say labor, right? Labor 992,000. So overtime, I can actually use this part, so I can put it here. I can put it here and just get my, but then we can still do it this way. I can put it in that table. So the overtime is 856 hours, and it is paid how many percent? It is paid how many percent?
25%.
25%. 25 divided by 100 times the 80 naira per hour. So what do we have?
17,120.
17,120. So what is the total? What is the total?
1,1009,120.
1,009,120. How did you see this question? How did you see this question? It's interesting, right?
It's not interesting. I beg.
It's an interesting question. I like it.
It's not.
Right?
It's not interesting. How many hours will somebody use to answer this one inside your exam?
No, it's because this thing is that it's because you have to, like this explanation now, you have to understand it. That this is how it works. For me, you need to understand that it will be from your production. If there is a wastage, you add it. Then what you produce, what material will you buy? Usage. You have to understand it this way. So once you picture the format this way, you will be able to do it. Trust me. Then the production labor, you said, oh, production unit, hours. If at all there is no any technical issue, we would have just put the rate per hour and get our cost. But because of overtime, and we need to add it back so that we have the total hours, we can be able to remove that technical issue, then we will still produce 760 units. Then we cannot compare, we will now compare it with, it is a technical question. I agree with you, right? I agree with you, right? Now, sometimes overhead will be given to you in the question overhead. So that overhead cost will take us to master budget, where you need to do your sales, minus your opening inventory, add purchases, your closing inventory, and your opening inventory. So that is why they said functional budget is what you will use to prepare a master budget. Okay, you said this is your sales. What is your sales in value? 845 times the selling price per unit we give you. Then purchases, you already have purchase cost of 1,800. Sales opening stock, you already have your opening inventory of finished goods. What is the rate? What is the cost per unit? What is the rate per unit? You multiply it. You have your purchases, you have your opening inventory, your closing inventory, you add purchases, right? You have your gross profit. When you have your gross profit, you have your labor. Is that also when you deduct your labor, it's part of your expenses. If you have an overhead, you will deduct your overhead and you have your profit. And that is what we call master budget, class. That is what we call master budget. You can see the summary. That is why they say when you want to prepare a master budget, there's a need for you to do a production budget, because it will aid in determining in master budget. What is master budget? Is your normal profit or loss. Just pick it up. This is sales. Sales times the selling price will give you the value. Inventory of finished goods. Right? Add opening stock, inventory, multiply it by the rate, we have the value. Closing inventory, multiply it, you add your purchases. This is your purchase cost already, right? You subtract it, you add and subtract, then you have your gross profit, and this is your labor. You have your labor, then you deduct your labor from what is it called? As part of your what? As part of your expenses. When you deduct it, maybe there is an overhead. You deduct the overhead as well, right? If there is an overhead, you deduct it and get your profit, and that is what we call master budget. Distinguished professional colleagues, I hope I've been able to do justice to this particular question. Class, any question? In our next class, we'll look at this budget. What is it called? Flexible budgets. Yes, that is the last budget. Before we quickly, just a class will take us on variance. Yeah, take us on variance analysis. Class, are we still together?
Okay, hello.
Yes,
I'm with you.
sir. So I wanted to ask about a part of the question. Have we answered
Which part? Which part? Which part do
the
you want to answer again? Which part?
the
Okay,
V
the cost.
part? The
Which one?
one that
Okay.
cost of
No,
production,
we've answered it.
the cost of
Yes,
labor for the
ye- yeah, this is the cost of production. This is the I've answered everything all together. Yeah, we've answered everything. The first one is production labor budget. The production labor budget will end here, right? We just end here. No rate, nothing, nothing. Do you get? No
But
rate. The
which
product,
one is the answer? Is it the
anyone
total
now.
hours?
This is the production labor that they say you should do. This is the production labor, and this is the cost. The cost of production labor. This is the cost of production. The cost of production labor is this. This is it. So let me arrange it. Don't worry. Where is Roman figure 3? This is your 4 IV. This is IV. This is IV. This is labor costs of production labor. Cost of production labor. Abi? So any other thing? Class, any other thing?
Are we not saying
Hello?
the B part?
You can do that one now. Do that one. Do that one. Answer that part. Just check. You can answer that one as well. Yeah, I have to go now.
All right.
All right. Yeah, thank you. So any other question? Are we good?
yes, sir.
Are we good? Okay. That's fine. You can see that budget is interesting, right? You can see it is very interesting, right? Just understand what you want to do. Don't forget the understand your cash budget. Your in the English is very important. Please go back to it. You can see the skeleton on draft it out, as well as the functional budget. Understand the functional budget, how it will from your production. When you produce, right, you will buy material. If you buy material, you will use labor. Start labor overhead. The question may even tell you that what is the total cost of production? Let me share my screen. What is the total cost of production? It means that you have to add, how is this thing on? You have to add, you have to add your overhead cost, and that will be your what? Your total cost of production. You know, this is just cost of production, right? If they say total cost will include your labor and your overhead, right? Labor and what? Labor and what? Labor and overhead. I can't share my screen. Okay, labor and what? Labor and what? Labor and overhead. And that is it, class. So there's nothing there, right? So if it is total cost, the cost of, you already have your cost of labor, is that not so? The cost of labor. You already have the cost of labor, right? You already have the cost of raw material, right? You have the I don't know why this thing is not have to restart. No. Now, if they say total cost of production, class, listen, no. Total cost of your production will be the cost of labor, will be the cost of material, will be the cost of overhead. The three together will give you the what? Just add the three together. We have what? Total production costs. Shikena. Are we good? Are we good, class?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, okay. So, distinguished professional colleagues, so exam is getting closer, right? So there's nothing, don't put yourself on pressure, right? Just make sure you do what? You study, right? Understand the principle of performance management, understand the principle of the courses you want to take, right? Don't forget that every topic I have been taking, right? It has a principle, it has the steps. So master the steps and move on. Thank you so much, and see you next week Saturday. So we'll meet on Saturday and Sunday,
Okay.
right?
Okay. Yeah. So
I'm with you.
how many classes do we have left? Like for
Uh, I want to
this?
try as much as possible. Yeah, I want to try maybe by next week. We still have like yeah, I want to by next week we'll do flexible budget. Yeah, we can do flexible budget and variance analysis together. I just want to touch the variance before we go.
Okay, so we have revision class.
Ah, revision care. Okay, oh, I will try. I will try. But I want to take revision on relevant costing November 2020 and transfer pricing. That these are the two things I want to take. I know you already know limiting factor already, so I just want to take transfer pricing and most especially that November 2020.